Hello, thank you so much for joining us again here on the Legal English UK YouTube channel. My name is Mike Davis and we are going to now look at some legal writing skills, particularly constructing sentences. Very complicated procedure. A lot of lawyers and law students struggle with this. So hopefully after this video you'll be able to construct sentences a little bit better. Now, what you have to remember when you are writing anything, whether it's for the legal sector or for business or just generally, your writing has to be clear, concise and engaging consistently throughout your work. So if you are writing 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, every paragraph needs to be transparent and understandable for the reader. You have to consider the reader, and always one of the main pieces of advice that we give to people is to try to read out your work aloud, either to yourself or to a friend. Maybe you can record it, maybe you can film yourself with it, just to see how understandable your work is. Okay, so clear, concise and engaging. And one way of doing this is through mixing your sentences up, because so frequently when a student brings us a piece of work, one of the big issues with it is that the sentences are too complicated to understand. There are too many sentences in a paragraph where you can easily split sentences. There's punctuation issues. You can split paragraphs more easily. So one way of trying to become a better writer is by making these sentences a mix of different styles. And by that, we'll find out what I mean on the next slide. So we should be aiming, when we write these sentences, for around 20 to 25 words on average. So different legal writers give different numbers for this. The very well-known legal writer Brian Garner says 20 words on average. Well, some law professors will say maybe 25, 26. Now, this does not mean that every sentence has to be 20 words, of course not, but it means that overall, when you look at all the sentences, it comes to about that. And clearly, and we'll see an example in a minute or so, you should aim to use long and short sentences in your paragraphs. So mix them up. So if you have one long sentence, maybe you'd have a short sentence next, and so on and so on, just to keep the reader aware and interested in your writing. Because now, in 2021, and maybe you're watching this video in 2027 when things have changed even more, people have so much to read, so much to engage with, that if you're boring them, they'll turn away, they'll go somewhere else. So let's have a look at this sentence. This is from a contract clause. The question is whether or not it's too long. So the consultant agrees to indemnify and continue to keep indemnified the client against all actions, proceedings, claims, judgments, demands, charges, disbursements or liabilities, including all legal expenses whatsoever or howsoever arising, so together known as liabilities, which the client may suffer, sustain or incur as a result of the consultant's provision or otherwise of the services, including but not limited to liabilities arising from or connected with, i.e. accident causing bodily injury to the consultant. So this is an actual contract clause from an actual contract, and you can see that it's very long, very difficult to understand. You'd have to dig into it quite deeply to fully comprehend what exactly the draftsman, the lawyer, was talking about when they wrote this sentence. There's a lot of words that could be erased here, and it would not really change the meaning of the clause. So you have to think when you're writing about your word choice. You have to try and keep things in the active voice, and you have to avoid legalese. That's, for example, if we show you the example here, legalese would be doublets and triplets. So these are words like suffer, sustain, or incur, which essentially mean the same thing. If you can find one word to replace those three, then you're doing very well as a legal writer. Same again with the second line and the third line. All actions, proceedings, claims, judgments, demands, charges, disbursements, or liabilities. Now here those words arguably are slightly different to each other, but you could still maybe cut one or two of those words out. So that's what we mean by avoiding legalese as much as possible. Obviously, when you're drafting contract clauses, you want the contract to be watertight, so you have to be very careful. But that contract clause could have been worded far, far better. Here's an example of some perfect writing. And when you're looking at writing from judges, judges' decisions, judgments, we tend to have to turn to judges in the US for good writing, because judges in England and Wales don't seem to be able to do it. Maybe it's because they haven't learnt with us. Maybe it's because they are used to writing very long phrases, long sentences, and they've been taught this at law school. But it's very difficult to find it in England and Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. So we turn to the US. This is a case called Jarksy against the SEC, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's from 2015. It's a beautiful piece of legal writing. I'll just read it, and then we can see what I think about it. So the Securities and Exchange Commission brought an administrative proceeding against George Jarksy Jr., charging him with securities fraud. That proceeding remains ongoing. In the meantime, Jarksy filed this action in federal district court, seeking the administrative proceedings termination. He argues that the proceedings' initiation and conduct infringe his constitutional rights in several ways. The district court dismissed his action for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. I can't remember the name of the judge, but you can see that they wrote a very clear, concise, and even elegant piece of work about this quite dry legal case involving the SEC. And you can see right at the beginning you have a long sentence there. I'm not going to count, but I guess it's probably 17, 18 words. And then the second sentence, much shorter sentence. Then you have a longer sentence, another long sentence, and then a short sentence at the end. So you can see how everything is mixed up. That's a good example of legal writing. If you do have any examples of your own legal writing, put them down in the comments below, and I'll encourage my tutors and other students to comment on them. www.legalenglish.co.uk for all your legal English needs, at Legal English UK on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. And you can see there you have a video that you should watch next, and don't forget to subscribe to this excellent channel. See you soon.